start recording. Genesis chapter number 27 is where we will be at today. And before we begin, Esther, you want to lead us in prayer before we start?
Dear Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the opportunity to be able to come here and worship you and learn about you, Lord. I pray you will give Fraser the words to say as he speaks to us, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Genesis chapter number 27. And we read in verse number 35. And it says this. And he said, Thy brother came with subtlety and had taken away thy blessing. If you have siblings, then, I think, which all of us here in this room, we do have siblings, and a lot of people do have siblings. Or if you don't have siblings and you're watching, then you have somebody that you have some influence to, or somebody that's close to you, like a brother or sister. You must try to figure them out along the way, and as we all know, siblings can be annoying sometimes, and things like that. And it could very well seem like an impossible task to try and get to know them and to maybe even get along with them, and try to be better. But we must learn how to get along with them, because it's a training ground for your future. For your future marriage and for your family as well, to get along with the people that are in your household. And if you can't get along with your siblings, it'll be very hard to get along with your mate or your friends. Now, throughout the Bible, there are many accounts of brothers and sisters, and some of the sibling stories that we have here in the Bible are really kind of tragic. So in Genesis 3, we see, you don't have to turn there, but in Genesis 3 we see Cain, right? Cain killed his brother. In 2 Samuel 13, we see Ammon, he molested his own sister. You see in Luke chapter number 10, where Martha, she criticized her sister. In Genesis 37, Joseph, he was sold into bondage by his brothers. So we see it's kind of cray-cray how brothers and sisters, they don't when they don't get along, or even when they even go against each other and they don't treat each other like they should. We see a bunch of the consequences of these things in the relationships that we just mentioned up above. In Genesis 27, it contains a story of two brothers, Jacob and Esau. Take a look at their relationship with one another. And now we're going to look at this. And as you do, I want to encourage you guys. As we look at the Jacob and Esau, their relationship, I want you to think about your relationship with your family members as well. I was reading through this thing, and I was thinking about, my siblings, my younger siblings, and, what I could do better in my relationship with them now that I'm, far away. I'm not in Jersey. I haven't been home in, probably almost like a couple months. And and it's kind of hard to keep in contact and stuff like that, but it still is possible. And so, we all love each other, I'm sure, like all siblings do. But what can you do to strengthen the relationships between you and your family members? And these are some things that we're going to go through. These are some things that we're going to look at. So we're going to read a couple verses here, and we're going to look at some things that Jacob and Esau had in their relationship that in the beginning was they didn't see eye to eye at all. They were against each other. They criticized each other. They tried to hurt each other. And towards the end, we see something beautiful happen between them. So number one, in your relationship, in the relationship with your family members, and in Jacob and Esau's relationship, we're going to see, number one, the sin in the relationship. If you want to make a relationship better between you and your siblings, you and your family, you have to see the sin that is going on. So we're in Genesis chapter number 27, and I need a volunteer here to read. How about Jasmine? Genesis chapter number 27, and can you read for me 18 through 20, and then skip down ahead to 24, nice and loud.
And he came unto his father and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may live.
And then go to 24, please. Nice and loud.
And I say Isaac said unto his son, how it is that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, because the Lord thy God brought it to me. And he said, art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am.
So we're seeing right now, as we read through 18 through 20 and then 24, we see the sin involved lying. So letter A under number 1, we see the sin in the relationship. Letter A, the sin involved lying. And it says, I'm going to read it again here. And he came unto his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I. Who art thou? Who art thou, son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn, have done according to thou biddest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat my venison, thy soulmate. So Jacob came in when his father could not see. His father was impaired. He couldn't tell which son he was. But Jacob pretended he was Esau to get the birthright, to get the blessing from his father. So we see in any relationship we have to look at the sin that's going on in our hearts first, and we see here the sin involved lying. Letter A. So letter B under that is the sin involved deception. John, read for me verses 11 and 12. Nice and loud, so that the people watching can hear you.
And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing.
So it's not right when siblings mislead each other. We see that Ammon, one of Ammon's greatest sins was when he was lying, when he lied to his sister about being sick. So misleading other siblings, misleading our parents about our siblings, these are part of the problem here as we look at the sin in the relationship that they had. Letter C, very quickly. The sin in Jacob and Esau's relationship involved stealing, right? It involved stealing. And we're talking about the birthright. All right, Esther, go ahead and read we're going to go to Genesis 25 now. Genesis 25, and I want you to read 27 through 30.
And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. And Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point of dying.
So look, a home must be built on love, trust, and honesty. Something that every person in the household should have between each other. Now we see here that there was no trust, there was no evidence of love, and there was no honesty in there. For our futures and even for our relationship with the Lord, it won't be a successful household if we can't learn to build love, trust, and honesty with those that we're living with right now, those that are around us right now, those that are close to us right now. If we don't get that right now, we're not going to get it right down the line in the future. So getting along with the people, having a foundation that's with those relationships that's built upon love, trust, and honesty is very important. It's going to be hard to do that in the future, your future wife or your future husband, if you don't first do it with your siblings and your family. Learning how to look at, so we just looked at the sin that was in the relationship. If you want to have a successful relationship with your siblings, then you have to look at the sin in your own self, what you're doing, and then you can address and help them if they're doing something that's not right either. But we see here in the relationship between Jacob and Esau that there was lying, there was deception, and then there was theft, there was stealing between them that went on. So point number 1, right, we looked at the sin of the relationship. Now, point number 2, we're looking at the self-will in the relationship. Self-will. Now, you hear the word self-will and you think, and this is what it means. It's what I want. This is what I want to do. These are the things that I want to accomplish. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter what other people want. Doesn't matter what other people say. Even sometimes the Lord is even a part of that. I don't really care. But self-will, something that we have to be careful of. Aisha, everyone turn to Genesis 28, and Aisha, you read for us 8 through 10.
And Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father, then went Esau unto Ishmael, and took unto the wives which he had Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth, to be his wife. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran.
Mm-hmm. See, now you read this. We read Genesis 28, 8 through 10, and it's obvious that the brothers here were looking out for themselves, right? It got past the point where they didn't even care about what their parents wanted he didn't even care about what his parents wanted for his life. He had his own goals, he had his own agenda, and he had his own ambitions, and that's a dangerous place to be. The self-will. You don't care about what anyone else has to say, especially those that are wiser. You don't care about, you want to do what you want to do, and that is something that we have to be careful of while as we live the Christian life, as we try and strengthen the relationships that we have between people, and most importantly between our family. So we have to look for those things. So that was letter A under that, but here we go. It's very dangerous when a teenager runs his or her own life. Now I kind of copied this sound from just something I heard. It says it's dangerous when a teenager runs his or her own life. That's why God put authority and leadership in our lives. Now, of course, the number one authority in someone's life is the Lord, but you will never submit to a Lord you can't see if you don't first submit yourself to a parent whom you can see. So, and that quote kind of is very self-explanatory. It stands on its own. How are we going to follow a God that we can't see if we can't learn to submit to the people that we can see? And not only just authority, but even submitting to your siblings, because especially if they're younger. My siblings, I have 4 younger siblings, and I've been where they are, obviously, and we've been through some of the same stuff, living in the household and things like that, and so there's a lot of maturity that needs to go on just because they're younger, they're in that stage of life. But if I, as an older brother, am not willing to submit myself to them and their needs, now it doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be everything. I'm still the older brother. I still have to make sure that they're doing the right things and kick them in the head when they're doing wrong. But I have to make sure I know their needs and submit myself to help them grow and to not get on them all the time. Make sure I'm being a servant to them as well and helping them in the way that they need to go. A relationship between a parent and child is very important. As you see here, in the world today, there's a lot of homes who are fatherless, who are, just broken. There's a lot of abortion going on. Single parents, single mothers, single fathers. People aren't taking the home life seriously. And you know what's happening? The children are suffering because of it. There are less and less people motivated for success. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some who take it very differently, and they let that be an encouraging thing for them to get married and stuff like that. But most likely or most often it's not the case. It really does have an effect on the child and things like that. So, think about it. When in the future right now, you want to have a relationship with your kids, if you have kids in the future, that's strong, that's built on love, trust, and honesty. And no, and then if you want to achieve that, then you have to have that right now. You're a kid and you have a parent, so you want to try and strive to have that love, trust, and honesty with your parents as you want for your kids in the future, and learn how to apply those things to your life so that you can be more successful in implementing that in every other relationship that you have as well. God puts emphasis on children, obey your parents. Now, obedience is doing something immediately and exactly what you are told to do. The Bible also says, honor your parents. So that means when you are doing everything So it's obedience is doing everything that you were told, but also doing it with the right spirit. Now, you can obey God, you can obey someone or something outwardly, but if you don't obey in your heart, then you haven't obeyed. I can say, all right, fine, I'll do this. But just that reaction right there, my heart was saying, I don't really want to do this. Right? It says in Proverbs, I think in chapter 4, now I'm remembering it, chapter 4, verse 23, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. So we see a lot of the things that we put outward, it comes from our heart. So if we don't first put Christ in our heart, if we don't put love, trust, and honesty in our heart, right? If we don't put those things in there, then what's in there? It's going to be disobedience, it's going to be sin, it's going to be jealousy, it's going to be rage, it's going to be getting mad quickly, it's going to be being disrespectful, all those things that come out because it's in our heart first. But if we have love, trust, and honesty in our heart, it will become easier for us to obey, and it will become easier for us to follow God and learn and listen and take a chill pill. Now, a teenager, again, must learn to submit to the following. And these are some things I want you guys to write down. A teenager must submit to the following. Now, number one, this is kind of, I guess, letter B or letter whatever you have, but this isn't point number 3 yet. All right, a teenager must learn to submit to the following. An authority to parents. Ephesians chapter 6, verse number 1. Number 2, authority of government. Romans chapter number 13. Now again, government, there are some things we have to be careful of. We're praying for our government officials and leaders. But again, none of these influences come over God. So we obviously be wise about your decisions and about, what's going on and things like that. Number 3, the authority of pastor and other leaders in his/her life. And this is in Hebrews chapter number 13. And now number 4, finally, it will be hard to submit to someone in marriage. And then this is in Ephesians 5:21. If you have not learned first to submit to the other God-given authorities in your life. So it will be hard to submit to someone in marriage if you have not learned to first submit to the God-given authorities in your life. And this is in Ephesians 5:21. So number 1, you everybody got that? So number 1, so we're talking about having a stronger relationship with your siblings, with your family, just about a household in general. If you want to have a successful household in the future, then you have to learn how to strengthen the relationships between your siblings, between those that are closest to you right now. Because you see Jacob and Esau, when we talk about strengthening the relationship, we're looking at what the sin of the relationship was. We're looking at the self-will. More often, I think a lot of relationships are, and we talked about this in a previous lesson about self-will and only caring about the rights of yourself and what you can get out of things and things like that. We see the sin, we see the self-will, and now finally, point number 3, we see the sorrow in their relationship that came because of the sin, because of the self-will, because of the deception, because of the misleading, because of the lying, because of all these things. The sorrow that these guys here that faced was evidenced by the fact for 20 years Jacob and Esau were separated from one another, and they didn't get to meet each other. They didn't get to meet each other's wives. They didn't get to meet each other's sons and daughters. They didn't do any family functions. They weren't together Thanksgiving, Christmas. They weren't going to Six Flags or anything together or anything like that. There was a brief time where they came together and made amends. So we'll go to Genesis chapter number 33. Really quick here. So I'll read here. It says, And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came with him, 400 men, and he divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the 2 handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And you see, now at the end of this story, I think Jacob was afraid, or I forget who it was that was afraid of who here.
Jacob.
Yeah, it was Jacob, because Esau was coming for him with like hundreds of soldiers. And he thought he was going to destroy him. But, he loved him, he kissed him, God did something in his heart where he realized, this is not it. This path is not where I need to be on. And, right now, but we see it was still never the same. 20 years, these guys never talked to each other, never saw each other. And I'm sure none of us want that for our siblings. I'm sure none of us want that for our parents. I'm sure none of us want that for our uncles or aunts or grandparents. I'm sure none of us want that for, because it is a tragic thing when we don't have a relationship that is built on love, honesty, and trust, especially between our siblings, those that are closest to us. It's tragic when family members can't get along again, and many families, perhaps even yours, are leading separate lives. Now, you're not able to speak to their brothers, sisters, or parents. Let me encourage you to make your relationships right in the Lord and in the things that we talked about, love, trust, and honesty, and make those things right with your family today. Do your brothers and sisters know that you care about them? That's one thing I try to make sure my brothers and sisters know. Hey, I care about you guys. I send them Bible verses. I'm praying for them. They may not be as strong in the faith, but they'll get there. If I keep living the right way and I keep showing my that I love the Lord first, then they'll catch on and they'll see that. He says, your walk talks and your talk talks, but your walk talks louder than your talk talks. Your actions speak louder than your words do. Now, do your brothers know that you care about them? Does your family know that you love and appreciate them? Does your family know that? We overlook a lot of times the sacrifices and the things that our family do to help us out, or we even get so caught up in their mistakes that we don't even see the Savior, and we don't see the blessing in even just having a father or a mother that we can call mom or dad, that we can see, that we can go to, because a lot of people don't. Are you in a family where everyone is doing their own thing? And if you are, or if you're doing your own thing in your family, and I was there before, the answer is to stay close to God. Stay close to God. Real quick, I'm going to remind you of this story. And we've got time. So turn to John. The book of John and chapter number 1. John chapter 1. Now, there are some relationships as well as the bad ones. There are some relationships that are good as well. And in John chapter 1, in verse number 39, we're going to see the relationship of Andrew and Simon Peter. So, 39, and I'll go 3 through 42 here. He saith unto them, Come and see. They came and saw where he dwelt, and abode with him that day. For it was about the 10th hour. One of the 2 which heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first findeth his own brother Simon, and saith unto him, We have found the Messiah, which is, being interpreted, the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. Let me say this again here. And he brought him to Jesus. When Jesus beheld him, he said, Thou art Simon, the son of Jonah. Thou shalt be called Cephas, which is by interpretation a stone. Now, we have two fine brothers here, Andrew and Peter. And when Andrew met Christ, and this is amazing. I think I cried the first time I read this. When Andrew met Christ, right? When he got saved, when he got that salvation, he had the joy. The first thing that he did was when he went and he got his brother. He ran to go get his brother and to bring him as well. And he brought his brother to Christ too. You see, they loved each other. They got along with one another. And they honored and respect one another. And let me encourage you, the very best way to have the right relationship with your family is if you're bringing them to the Lord, if you yourself are walking in the Lord and are constantly submitting yourself to the needs of people, but keeping God first overall. Now, love, trust, and honesty. Number one should be God, obviously, but looking at the sin, looking at the self-will, and if you're not looking at those things, unfortunately, you're going to have sorrow in the relationship. But if you follow Andrew and Simon Peter, what we just read here, the first thing he did was he went to go tell his brother about the Lord. You know, that's the best thing that anybody could ever do for anybody. So, you know, does your family know that you care about them? You know, siblings, grandparents, uncles, aunts, you know, do they know that? And if you're in a family where you're doing your own thing, stop doing your own thing. Start including them in your life. Start including them in what's going on, to have that love, trust, and honesty, so that there can be a unity, so that when you have a spouse or when you have kids or anything like that, something like that shouldn't be a problem, because you already implemented the foundational love, trust, and honesty in your own relationships as well. Somebody said, and this goes for both ways, boys and girls. Someone said, the way that you treat your father, and for a guy, the way that you treat your mother is the way that you're going to treat your spouse. So, you know, I thought that was really cool, because it's in a relationship, which you guys will know, and those of you watching, from pastor telling me and stuff like that, there are probably people older than me watching, but, you know, it's always about, you know, seeing how people respond to things, respond to the people that are closest to them, because as we've seen, you know, we're comfortable with the people that are close to us, we're comfortable with our siblings, and so we act a different way. And if you have that love, trust, and honesty, if you're treating them that way, then it's going to show in the way that you treat others. But if you're not treating them that way, you know, if you're getting on their nerves with your parents, or, you know, whoever's in charge of you as well, you know, the way that you're treating them is the way you're gonna treat your future spouse and treat other people in your life. When you become close to them, it's gonna show. So, you know, always be working on those things of love, trust, and honesty, building that foundation right now with the people that are closest to you. Because if you don't, there's gonna be sin, there's gonna be a self-will where you don't even care, and then there's gonna be sorrow. Nobody's gonna be happy because of it. And it's always amazing to see this, because, you know, you think about your family, and, you know, you're so comfortable with them, but sin in any area of your life will always have a negative effect on your life. Sin will always have a negative effect, no matter where, no matter whom, no matter why. It'll always have a negative effect. So remember those things. The people that are closest to you, build a relationship that is founded upon love, trust, and honesty, because when you do that, you then begin to want that for the other relationships that you have in your life, and it encourages other people to do the same. So, you know, work on, if you have problems right now, and I know all you personally, so I mean, you know, and you know me personally, I guess, but if your siblings right now, everyone in here, if you're struggling, if you're doing your own thing, if you don't have that relationship that has love, trust, and honesty, make sure you get that right, get it settled, and let's come together and serve the Lord. All right. John, end us out in prayer here.
Lord Jesus, we thank you for this lesson. We pray that you give us all patience, temperance, and love for our siblings that we need, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.